Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I have a channel that focuses on the education of new traders and generally more experienced traders. The channel tries to integrate financial analysis, technical analysis, and some use of big data platforms, which at the end of the day help you answer questions beyond the normal database-driven application that usually drives most activity that you'll find. These days, big data obviously is a new concept, but tools like big data platforms, Hadoop, MapReduce, and then AWS and Azure offerings, which are effectively analytical tools to help you look at data sliced and diced in a database. Data in a database is transactional, meaning it just records things. You can't really do much in there. So analytics is a tool, an analysis tool that enables you to restructure the data, add it up by column, aggregate it, do stats, and so forth. Uh, so I have a master's in IT and experience as a financial analyst. I'm also a part-time trader. Take this real seriously. So I hope you gain something from it. So again, I'm looking at the stocks. Um, Over the past few months, I've done a monthly newsletter looking at stocks that I qualified as largely active, which is to say they traded in the volume of 25 million or so contracts per day in a group of watch lists that I created. So I track several hundred stocks. I would consider probably a good percentage of some of the bigger stocks out there. It's just having studied various sectors of the economy, from micro sectors to others, IT, since I have an IT degree. I've learned to diversify and study several markets, including oil, pharmaceutical companies, automobile banks, maybe the bigger ones that are affiliated with most of your ETFs. So I do this for myself when I pick trades. I try to look at opportunities. I'm not a desperate trader. I don't have to do this for money. Obviously, my accounts aren't big enough to consider myself an investment banker or ready to think of stocks like that. I look at them as research, education, and then why I would go into a specific trade. So thus far this year, over the past year, I'd say my analysis have mainly included trends over several months, but then more recently, in the past 3 months, I've been trying to look at stocks in my watch lists on a monthly basis to determine how the stocks generally look and where and when one might look to trade. So I'll be covering a little bit that I've done in the past, which is candlesticks and um, analyzing patterns that are easy to spot, and then whether the pattern indicates there's a clear, obvious choice of where you want to buy or where other investors like yourself might buy. So without further ado, this will be my first presentation on what amounts to a weekly chart, which is to say I'm going to analyze my watch lists for the next 8 weeks on a weekly basis. I'm going to go over one or two trades that I've made that were profitable. Without further ado, let's look at the week of May 24th. That's to say, the week started on May 20th or the 19th, and I want to look at their performance. And we're having a look here at the first watch list that I am tracking. I really just call it watch list from 2022, and I selected a few stocks that, based on my brokerage and the study. So there's a firm called Recognia. Recognia has a lot of these so-called technical indicators, and it'll send you some kind of alert. I started, looking at them periodically and started naming my various stocks with a watch list. It might say bottom triangular wedge. It might say uh, technical analysis term, RSI or momentum. In any event, that's mostly the rationale, but I tried to segregate the stocks into common themes. So this stock watch list from 2022 is an example of how I track them. So looking at the screen, the first one that you'll see here is First Solar. Trades in the 270 range. Its 52-week range has been from 130 to 278, and there you see some volume profile for about 8 million stocks traded in volume. So it's not the most heavily traded stock, and you can do your own research about it. But in terms of big movers on my watch list, First Solar was big. Energy company Enphase was big. Uh, TAN, an ETF for the solar energy field, is big, as is Jinko Solar. I believe that's an Asian country. Now, again, the statistic that I like to look at is volume. The 52-week range is important because I can tell whether the stock is in the, very bullish range, like the first one, First Solar, nearing the high of the year, or kind of in the middle, like Enphase. TAN is toward the lower end. Some would say, well, it's better to get in with a stock that's closer to the bottom uh, because it might have some room to grow or progress. My argument with that is it's not always the case, but it's something to look at. Just because the stock looks like something on the 52-week range doesn't mean that it's going to continue to go higher if it's on the high side, nor does it mean that if a stock is on the low side that it will continue to grow lower. So we might want to analyze these same stocks over the course of the 8 weeks and come to a conclusion based on that. So I'm really, really targeting stocks within the range that I had indicated previously of very highly traded, 25 million, but now I've added a second parameter to my weekly, which is it must make a daily move of over 3%. I'll go into the specific reason a bit later. I think that stocks that tend to make a 3% move are more likely to make 3% moves in general. It's just a basic, uh, you know, assumption. My theory may bear itself out in reality in some cases, which I found over the past few months and years when I've done some analysis. But that's a very complicated topic that deals with algorithms and data science. And I'll touch on those in these videos, but my goal is really not to get into the technicals. It's just try to keep it simple and look at stocks with parameters that are easy to follow, like the 3% move. So the title of this slide is Energy and IT. So our first IT stock here to look at is AMD. Its volume we'll have to see, probably closer to what we needed. Yep, 54 million per day on the 25th. But its move of 3.75% to me was significant. It's trading toward the top of its 52-week range, and but it looks like it's got room to grow, doesn't it? It's trading at the 166. It's been as high as 227. AMD is a big chip player. High volume to me indicates that's clearly a stock that you want to have on your watch list. The next one is called Invesco Municipal. That's just a smaller stock that tracks some activities in the local bond markets. Local bond markets meaning cities. REITs are real estate investment trusts. Hannon Armstrong is one that I've been tracking. And then the Intercontinental Hotel Group, a very famous five-star hotel group. And again, looking over at the volume, the one that really stands out obviously is AMD, and in second place it's the one First Solar. So for now, um, we are going to just mark down the ones that we've decided today are of particular interest: International Hotel Group and AMD. Thanks for watching some watch lists for this few minutes of time. Let's move on to the next one. You can look at my chart and determine whether or not you think there's real particular need to pay attention to others. But for my personal notes, I want to look at AMD and International Hotel Group. I'm not sold or understand the energy sector well enough to know whether there's a consistent gain to be had in these. So that's me speculating and thinking out loud. I think the one that jumps out is AMD and the hotel group because it's holidays and you just never know how much people want to overspend on the holidays, summertime. This next watch list that we are looking at has a technical term turned to months. It suggests that it had been going in one direction for an extended amount of time, several weeks, and then starting to turn around. So it has nothing to do with anything other than a technical indicator from the past. But what I'm trying to determine is when these stocks are making turns, are they drastic? And when they are drastic, which I'm defining as greater than 3%, how long will it continue to go positive as it turns? And again, that's just a common sense analysis. So Zella, EXELA Technologies, more of a small cap, trivial stock. Anything under $50 I consider to be trivial stock. Let's just say 20. Zella was trading basically at penny stock level. Its volume was minimal, but it had a 7% move. So in my free time, I'll take a peek at it. Vistra Energy, there's a stock size that I would pay attention to. It made a 6% gain. It's trading close to the top of its 52-week range. It's got 8 million. That's a fairly good one. The reason I'm not super interested in it is because in general I know that all these energy stocks that I'm tracking did well this week. So I'm not gonna really worry too much about this one. I'm trying to think about new ideas. BNGO is a science research company. It did okay. The group that I really want to pay attention to that I'm looking at here is DXLG. You may not have heard of it. Destination Extra Large is being tracked on my watch list um, as a specialty retail. Let me pause and backtrack. So, a retail environment involves many dozens of stocks, and I got this one confused for a minute as I was doing this video. I'm looking at another one called Delta Apparel that supplies discount stuff to retailers. I think it's Big Lots, whatever companies you can think of as discount retail Delta. So I got it confused with DXL. However, DXL is a place for, I guess, big and tall people. So it seems to be very much a small play, not something that I want to track. So, but I might invest a little bit in it because it's so stable. It seems to be ranging in the $3 to $5, like, you know, placing a few $100 on a stock like that, which you might call some sort of value or safe play in tough economic times, is probably why I've listed it. So let's move on to okay, the one that I'm particularly interested in is the Penn Gaming. Penn Gaming has been on a lot of people's radar. It is a gambling play, so you go to a casino or somewhere, you're able to gamble at the casino using electronics provided by Penn Entertainment. Obviously, it's not one of those online things. Its volume is 3 million. It's trading toward the bottom of the 52-week range. If this is something that's turned in the past, I'm going to add Penn to my watch list. Penn. All right, so moving back down to the watch list I was just watching. It's going to be a little bit higher than that. We're going to cover these in a moment. Penn Gaming and ALB. ALB is a mining company in America. It's made a reasonable gain. The reason that people talk about it, obviously not that much. It was only trading in the $1 million range. It's toward the bottom of the 52-week range. Albemarle is a mining company that is really providing support to the electric uh, green energy markets. It's huge, but something about the pricing volatility makes it a risky long-term play. So I'm just going to mention it. I'm just going to mention it. You'll have to do your own research. I'm not going to add it to my watch list. So I've pulled up another watch list here, and in this particular case, I'm just going to leave it open on my brokerage accounts, but because when I cut and pasted, I had actually forgot to sort it. So I'm going right to the PowerPoint, keep this presentation rolling. What I'm calling this watch list effectively is just a generic watch list. I'll explain it another time. The heavy hitter there was the KB NASDAQ Bank Index. So there's evidently NASDAQ um, related banks that are being tracked. This is being tracked as an ETF, an exchange traded fund. You can study that on your own. It's not one stock, but it's an investment in several stocks to an extent. Um, the percent move was significant, so it's something to consider. I think that's a typo. I'm looking at the columns here, or an error by Charles Schwab. No big deal. Happens once in a while. It's suggesting the stock went up 33 bucks in a day. However, the range here says it went up from 104 to 105, so I'm pretty sure that's a typo. It's been ranging from 70 to 107. We're close to the top. I'm not going to pay attention to that. Sounds like big moves are volatility indicators, so I tend to wait until they calm down, but they generally do teach us about the direction. I'm not going to talk about stocks in rows 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because they are what amounts to penny stocks generally. I'll tell you what they are by name. Co Crystal Pharmaceutical SOS Limited ADR. That means that it's got to be a foreign company that we use an alternative derivative something classification to trade. It's not American. OCUP Farm. Gannett, that's a newspaper company trading between 170 and $3. Not interested. In the long term, I might be as an investment. Goro is a smaller play in the gold environment. Vistra Energy, we know. We've seen it in the watch list already. Destination Extra Large, I'm tracking here. And then LEDS, kind of a small company dealing with IT. I think it provides some cool things. Um, but let's scroll down to see who else continues to be over 3%. Lee Automotive. Um, so much like Tesla is an energy-based automobile play in America, Lee Automotive, I think, is a competitor in China. I will say that for today, I'm not going to include Chinese stocks in my watch list on this publication because I'm not going to be interested in giving attention to non-well-known stocks. Chinese stocks to me are laced with interventions from government and probably don't seem like healthy investments. PENN Markets, again, a gambling company, has appeared on this watch list. Infuse System Holdings, just not seeing. I'm really looking for percent moves, and I'm really looking for volume. Not finding it at the moment on this watch list. PDD, now there's one I like. PDD. It's trading toward the bottom of the day's range, which means that it must have gapped up overnight. Otherwise, the percentage move wouldn't be so high. So percentage moves cover the difference between yesterday's close and today's close. Seems to have been shot up to 165-ish, came back down to 157, yet it was still a 3% move over yesterday. It appears to be trading toward the positive of the yearly high. That's what you call a momentum indicator. Momentum is measured by how is the closing price related to the opening. If it's toward the closing price is closer to the low of the period, marked here at the 59, then it's considered bearish. If it's toward the high, the momentum is high. So without further ado, I'm going to add PDD to my watch list. And I'm really not going to pay much attention to anything else except for Micron over here. Micron is a chip It's trading toward the top of the yearly cycle. And let's take a quick look at the chart. I like to look at the 3-month chart to get a general idea. Again, we talked about, let's look at the low, which is at the beginning of the period, the high, which looks like it's in the middle of the period, and presently the stock is trading towards the top. This is not a stock you want to be bearish on. So yep, I like the chart. I'm going to add this to my watch list. Thanks again for watching. We are close to getting to the end of this on this Saturday afternoon, May 25th. Spend a little bit of time outdoors. I live near the beach, New Hampshire. Watched a little European soccer, Spanish soccer, and of course the FA Cup. And while the FA Cup is exciting, making money is too. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. I labeled this watch list as entertainment. First stock, it's a very, very well-known retail traded stock. AMC did a 7% gain. Not sure what that's all about. It's too cheap and volatile for me to put on a watch list. Sportsman's Warehouse Holding is like a retail company. Let's see how it's been trading in the past couple of weeks. Looks like an investment in the long term, $2 to $6. Not a money maker over over here. Like your big stocks. Travel Zoo, I like that one. Travel Zoo has been trading between 4 and 11, made a 7% move. Does that indicate anything obvious? Well, people are probably planning summer trips. So I'm going to put Travel Zoo on my watch list. The next stock we're looking at is DELL. DELL probably highly traded, 17 million it looks like. That's in my watch list range. Trades as high as 166. It's at 160. Looks like it's pushing the momentum buttons. I'm going to add DELL. NVDA is too expensive for me, too volatile. I'm not putting that on my watch list. Do what you will. Phototronics trades between 18 and 34. Doesn't seem to be heavily traded. I'm not going to pay much attention to it. So we're only adding DELL, I think. DELL to our watch list. All right, let's take a breather and go over a few things that are pertinent to you, the audience, and myself. I look at a variety of stocks and ETFs over the course of time, and some days I look at it once a day. Some weeks I look at it once a week. Some months I look at it every week. Some months every other week. That is to say, I'm an experienced trader. I'm a level 4 options trader, which is to say I have experience trading at the earlier levels. An early lower level is you need to have the money to trade options without effectively leveraging the bank. Leveraging the bank means you've experienced trading, you have capital, and you don't have to prove to the bank that you have $100,000 to trade. You'll have to look into your own brokerage as to how they qualify you. But an options trade is a trade over the contract or the right to buy 100 shares at a given price. So if I see a stock today trading at 100 and I want to buy the option for the stock at 101, the option to buy that contract will cost me X amount. We'll call it an even $100. If the stock makes it to 101, then the contract has an expiration date. Generally, traders use expiration dates a week or more in advance. So in this case, I recommend common sense, but I generally have been told to trade options in a 2 to 3 week window. So if my stock goes to 101 during the period of time of my contract and I had bought it for 100, at the expiration date, if the stock goes above 101, I make that premium back that I paid for it, plus a bonus for how much above 101 it went. That's the simple explanation of it. This is geared towards beginner and experienced traders to go over the basics, and then fundamentally how to analyze stocks in groups by organizing them and then taking your time to look at performance. So we've covered most of the stocks in my watch list. We're only going to look at a few stocks, but we're going to compare how they did with themselves a week ago, and we'll get a clearer picture on whether there's a trade or not. I don't even know. I'm doing this as I would on any ordinary Saturday, looking at my stocks and trying to analyze what I wanted to trade. I might decide not to trade anything this week. We're going to look at one or two more watch lists. We're going to look at what amounts to the sentiment. Sentiment is analyzed by looking at generically a large swath of stocks. We're going to look at sentiment and how it impacts the market simply by saying if the sentiment is positive, more people are buying than selling, we're probably looking to make money in the bullish direction. How do we gauge sentiment? I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to look at an exchange traded fund for those stocks that are on my watch list. So if DELL is in a particular ETF, we'll just say it's the QQQ. I want to look at the sentiment. If you don't know what the QQQ is, I will explain it. The common indexes are the S&P 5000. The other indexes we'll look at are, as I had mentioned, the ETFs for specific sectors like the oil sector. There's various ETFs that track such things as the banks, airlines, and any number of other subgroups. So in general, we want to take a look at sentiment overall and then within a sector. After that, we're going to go back and compare our, our analysis done today with sentiment and see, hey, if our stock traded, 3% in the positive, but overall the sentiment in that market is down, why the hell would I consider trading it? Wouldn't I consider trading it toward the downside? So what I would call a sandwich approach, a three-tier approach. The top level is that piece of bread. I want to just know, look, what kind of bread am I getting in my sandwich? What am I looking at? Is it a whole wheat? Is it a green energy company? Is it an oil company? Is it an IT company? If you don't know that, you have nothing to compare to sentiment. Sentiment drives my trading. It should drive yours. All right, so we're looking at the healthcare sector and a company called Guardian Health. I love that stock. It went up 13% this week. I believe it's toward the lower end of its 52-week high and low. Yep. I'm sorry, the 52-week high of 41. I believe it's a safe investment. That's just my personal opinion. It's based on sentiment. It's based on the range it's traded at, how it compares with the broader market. We had some chop. I wish I could have gotten in on it closer to the bottom, but maybe now's not a bad time. Guardian Health made a whopping 13% or $3 gain in one day. We want to read about that. I don't pay attention to penny stocks. I just like to know what they are. I won't analyze the penny stock, but I want to know about it. NVENT Electric PLC stock that is on my watch list that I'm tracking. It's a healthy price. It's close to the top of its 52-week range. It's only trading in the 1 million. I'm going to add it to my watch list because I just don't know a lot about it. Generac Holdings, I know a lot about. It is trading towards the top of its range. It's not really traded highly. I'm not interested in that one. SMH is one of those sentiment stocks. It's an ETF tracking semiconductors. It's generally tracking the IT business. Semiconductors these days are related or correlated with artificial intelligence. So definitely adding SMH, and I'm definitely adding NVENT. NVENT. Thanks for watching. We are now going to look at the stocks from our stock list. We'll begin with the AMD stock. And the AMD stock, we said, had a considerable move. I now need to look at AMD, and I need to look at AMD as it compares to last week. I'm pulling it up on my brokerage account, and I'm going to pull up the chart. I'm going to select, first I'm going to select the 1 month chart. I'm going to select the 1 month chart, which we are looking at together. I'm going to attempt to analyze this stock on the fly, which I'm able to do probably more easily than some. This is a simple line graph from left to right. It says 20th of April. We are right around the 25th of May, a month later. The stock has held within a fairly simple range. The high you can see is 166. Going back to May 15th, the low was 115.51. That's $15. It is really right in a position right here and now that suggests that this is the right price for the stock because there's a lot of activity. It doesn't seem to go much lower than this unless you go back closer to May 15th. No, back to the beginning of May where it was hovering in the 150. It's in this range now where all I need is confirmation that this stock wants to go higher. Confirmation for me comes from looking at a sentiment analysis and looking at moving averages. The moving average should show that this price right here, 164, has been touched several times in the past month, and only once has it broken, but it served as a lever, a momentum, how shall I say, a momentum shift, because just before it had gone down, it had gone up. People took some profits and then wanted to reload as quickly as possible. They wouldn't let it go down before 159. I'd say people are looking to buy this stock, and I'm looking to be bearish, but well, I'm sorry, bullish, but I'm not really interested in trading this one based on this chart. And we'll look at sentiment a bit more. But right now, it's not screaming too much. I'm looking at the 3 month. I like that it's got room to go to the high side. I probably would have gone into this last week looking to see how high above the previous high it would go, but we are pretty high above the previous high, so I'm thinking right now I'm going to wait a little bit on this one. So the next item that we were looking at was International Hotel Group. And I will pull that chart up as well. Bear with me. Now, I am bullish overall on AMD. It is in some ways in the long run screaming buy, but is it screaming buy like right this second? No, and I'll explain to you what is a screaming buy to me as we progress, because we're bound to find one. That's the purpose of this video, is to find out sentiment and find out what's clearly an opportunity. So this one to me is actually speaking like volumes about a stock that I would be considering buying immediately. And I'm going to go into those details in a minute. But in the month that we're tracking international hotel groups, again, it's been very. Sorry, I had to adjust memory settings here. It's big script we're running. The range that I was looking at is right around that $100 mark. And the more activity that you see on any given price, the more important that price becomes, because it can do two things. It can serve as support and it can serve as resistance. So just generally speaking, looking at it over the course of the past month, it wasn't a popular, how shall I say, it wasn't a popular price in April, was it? And as the month of May evolved, we noticed that $100 range was extremely important. It was serving as what amounted to a floor and a ceiling. Like it wouldn't go much higher, in which case that's a ceiling, but it wasn't going much below. So the longer it stays in that range, the more we know, like based on the market and sentiment and various other things like earnings and prognostications and takeovers, or what I would say is news, stock wasn't going to go anywhere. Is 100 the right price for that stock to buy? Probably. In fact, it tried to go above 100 to about 102 at the beginning of the week, and then it came back down. Many investors look at that return to normalcy as the next opportunity to load up, but it sure as hell looks like that was the right thing to do. Not only did it return to that 102 price, it returned once, twice, three times. So in theory, the risk of this stock going back down to 100 has gone down because it looks like the activity has now gone from 100 to 101. Now, that's why for me this stock is either obviously in a buy range or in a sell range. Obviously because there's a gap, big gap between 102 and 100, and it's gone up and down in that gap considerably. And what people will talk about, the gap is usually filled. In other words, once there's a floor ceiling establishment, there's also the law of moving averages. This average is going up a little bit. So even though we are bullish on this in the long run, like it's possible it will go down before it goes up. And they call that a lower high or high, I'm sorry, higher low, higher high. So I think this is an obvious example of a stock that people are going to trade or speculate in. So that's for me a stock which is trading in a place that could be at support for some time. And it's been at that support at the beginning of April. So let's go back 3 months. I'm belaboring it because I'm thinking about this is more probably risky than the previous stock, AMD, which is clearly a little bit more volume traded and active. But even here, we see that this stock could be turning around and headed toward that high of 110. So I'm sold. I'm sold that this is probably the right time to get into this stock. So we'll look at the price details in a moment. So quickly to recap, I'm looking at stocks that we put on the watch list, and I'm trying to figure out which one I'm more likely to be interested in. For whatever reason, my gut and my emotion tells me International Hotel Groups is one that I want to pay attention to. I tend to trust my gut. However, AMD may be screaming more of a buy to you. So this is not financial advice. This is, in fact, an analysis and education on risk and so forth, the risk to reward proposition. I think the risk to reward proposition here is a little higher for IHG than AMD, but I'm not a pro, so I cannot recommend that. In fact, I'm probably gonna think about it overnight, and but I'm just showing you how I analyze it. In fact, I have time to analyze it some more overnight. Again, I'm not making recommendations. I'm just saying based on my watch list, I'm probably more inclined to think that I would buy something like this than sell it. So next stock on my watch list was called PENN Gaming. So I'm going to pull up PENN now for us. And let's see what it does. Let's see what it says. Where is PENN in terms of how it looked a week ago? Again, this is educational. The way I even begin to decide whether to buy is I got a watch list. That's the big, that's the top of my sandwich. The next piece is, the meats and the salads. And so I'm preparing those accoutrements here. I'm preparing I'm preparing the sandwich. I'm not taking a bite. I'm preparing it. If I don't like the taste, I'm throwing it out. So we're looking at PENN. We said it made a big move in the past month. Again, it's in this little range, isn't it? It's in a range. It wants to go above the range. It comes down, got a higher high there, then it got a lower high, and then a lower low. Right now, you might say that this stock, um, you might say this stock is right there at a happy medium, neither buy nor sell, because it's tried to go up once, twice, lower high here, lower low. If this is a Some people might tell you, look, man, sell on this one because this could be a lower low, but it doesn't look like it's stayed below this little price for some time. Some people might tell you that this is the beginning of a momentum shift because right now the stock is, if you look at it in the past day, it's closed higher than its low. 2 days, let's go back for the week. 20th, we'll say the 20th, hasn't gone anywhere. That it's rejected the low a little bit more vehemently. So I don't know. I am not sold on this one. I am going to say that probably trading below the average. You don't want to do that. I'm gonna pass on this one. So PDD, and I will actually place a trade based on my decision today, at least one, just because I'm a part-time professional and I live and die by my decisions. So we're looking up the next one on my watch list, which was called PDD, a broadline retailer. Again, right off the bat, I'll tell you that. Goldman Sachs upgrades PDD to buy from neutral. This was on May 24th. Barclays adjusts it as well. Bernstein adjusts it. So I think the news really, uh, which happened in the morning from Goldman Sachs and in the morning from Barclays, Uh, looks like a lot of people decided this stock was doing all right. So maybe it reported earnings. Maybe that's why it's on our watch list. Um, and if we look at it in the broader context, we said weekly basis. Notice how this chart is totally different than the other charts we've looked at. There was a range, it broke out of that range, and now it's just kind of like really gone up. So is it at a place where I would buy it, or am I looking to wait? Obviously, looking to wait. I just don't see how I have any confirmation that it's going to go above the. It's got a consistent higher high, higher low. People are probably buying it. Some people would tell you they're bullish on it. I would say I'm not that bullish on it until I know for sure that it settles at a price range, tests it a few times, and then shoots up. That's generally how I've seen stock indexes move. It went up, came down, went up. This was a good retracement. Yeah, you might say this is bullish. It's hard to argue a counter argument on the bullish. Let's look at the 3 month. Oh, it did test this high before. It's met it. Oh, this is confirmation. This is headed up there. I'm gonna wait till it comes down a little bit before buying it again. If I do a graph, it's probably gonna, do what other people would do for you, graphically tell you that this is probably in a buy range. Okay, so PDD. Next stock, Micron. So again, as an update, what we're doing is we're looking at this stock over the course of the week. Over the course of the week, it has been choppy. It looks like it's at a place of support now, and but it looks like it could be trying to, you know, it could be trying to go above where it is now. But in the 1 month, it looks like definitely the momentum is in its favor, but it looks like it's kind of stuck in a range. It might go down a little more before it goes up. It's not screaming buy to me.
On the 3 month chart, it is looking more bullish. So in the long run, I would suggest maybe we've entered bullish territory. Micron, I'm going to add Micron and Dell on my list here. I'm going to say consensus by sentiment and risk analysis. So consensus by sentiment and risk. The only one that I saw on there was International Hotel Group. And then we were looking at um, Micron. I'll double check that. But I'm going to write a column here called sentiment and risk. I'm going to say check for International Hotel Group. And we haven't done sentiment because we have to compare it to the broader index. So right now I'm going to say pending. I'm going to say pending. And we're going to go back to the chart on International Hotel Groups. I'm sorry, this is Micron, right? Micron. We got one more stock here to look at, I think. I go to my synopsis, Micron, and I think we got DELL. DELL, NVT, and SMH. Without further ado, we'll go to DELL. I'm going to do this quickly because that's how you trade. You really just got to make your decision based on facts. Understanding sentiment and risk is important, but once you know how to do it, once you just decide your methodology, yeah, not the super healthiest of retracements. This is a healthier retracement. On the week, it's looking bullish. On the month, it looks like it's on the way up. Month over month for the past quarter. I'm also bullish on this one. Would we say this is DELL, correct? So we are looking at DELL. We're looking at DELL. Let's see something here. We really wanted to add DELL. I'm going to add DELL. Pending sentiment. Check means it's okay. Next up, we were going to look at NVT. And NVT, we're going to try to be quick, because I know we want to get to sentiment. Said on the week, doesn't get more positive. On the month, doesn't get more positive. And I'm not going to add it, I just don't know enough about it. Let's look at news. Its ratings are hold, outperform, average. It is electrical equipment. I'd wager to say right now this stock for me is a hold, just like the others are saying. And then lastly, SMH. I'm going to jump ahead to my theory on sentiment and risk and suggest that I probably don't want to overdo buying a stock in the same sector unless I'm pretty confident that sector has growth. Otherwise, I'm limiting my eggs in one basket, as they say, one market. I'd rather trade in a couple markets. It just spreads your risk, doesn't it? SMH bullish on the day, very bullish on the week, very bullish on the month, and Yeah, hey, it's near all-time highs, isn't it? Yeah. So, um, SMH, um, I'm not comfortable with an ETF because there could be some stocks that hold it back. It's just once it gets up in here into this very positive area, I wonder how long it can go. So I'm going to leave this one off because I know the SMH is related to IT. We've already looked at two IT stocks, Micron, right? And we've looked at AMD. We've looked at Micron. We've looked at AMD. We'll call this conclusion. Um, we're looking at Micron, which is in the semiconductor space. Looking at international hotel groups and looking at DELL, which is generally IT. All right. So we are now going to check sentiment. And the way I check sentiment is really straightforward. I'm going to check sentiment by going to the big ETFs that cover an index or that covers a range of stocks to tell me I know the weekly sentiment, I know the monthly sentiment. Am I going to learn something by looking at another perspective? So I'm looking at effectively the coverage of ETFs within a specific um, sector. The first one that I'm going to pull up looks like the first index that's on my radar is the clean energy ETF. I didn't select any clean energy. I'm moving on. SMH is the strongest one, which made a 2% change on Friday. It appears to be the strongest one. We've already looked at that, so we know we're bullish on Micron from a sentiment. So I'm going to switch back to this because we inadvertently had looked at ETF as a potential buy, but it affects a lot. It's an ETF containing Micron-like stocks, so pending became positive. So now I'm going to do price analysis on it after I finish looking at hotel groups. So sentiment on Friday and for the past week we've covered. The next you might say that the ARKK Innovation ETF, which is primarily IT stocks, is perhaps a sentiment analysis. Yeah, it's definitely not as bullish. Um, it's definitely not bullish on the weekly. It's definitely not bullish on the monthly. Definitely not bullish there. So ARKK is famous. It has Tesla, Coin, Roku, Square, Roblox. And its performance year to date, look at the performance, not super great. The reason that it's doing okay, I think, is because it has a lot of the Bitcoin. But Tesla was keeping it down, Roku hurt it, Square was hurting it, Path was hurting it, Roblox was hurting it, Robinhood. Robinhood did well for it. Looking at 60% of the portfolio. Tesla being the bigger. Well, Tesla wasn't even on our radar, so this one won't work as a sentiment analysis. But it gives us a sniff of the market that, generally speaking, this isn't a super hot market overall, is it? Not over. I mean, overall, it could be hot. It might not be super hot. She's no idiot. ARKK is managed by Kathy Wood, as you know. So we looked at SMH. That's promising. ARKK. Um, what did we do? We sorted this out by change percent. Change percent. Said First Solar was good, but we weren't bullish on it. All right, so ARKK, where is it? Communications. I'm looking at the communications ETF for educational purposes. I want to see what it's doing on a daily chart. It's going okay. On a 5-day chart, it's fairly flat. The 1 month doing okay. And on the 3 month, pretty good. Not correlated to any stocks I'm considering buying, but it definitely looks like this is a better market. Communications and ARKK Kathy Woods basket of goods. And we said there were a couple of other ETFs on that page we were looking at for sentiment. Sentiment. We are looking at ETFs in a specific hierarchy that did well on Friday, and then we're looking at how it did on the week, and we said ARKK, so communications was next. Okay, we got a bunch now. We got the Russell 2000. I really don't want to make a decision based on the Russell 2000, which tracks small stocks per se, but it does also give us an idea of sentiment overall. People go into the small tech stocks, small stocks as what they call the risk off. So, or I'm sorry, they go into the small stocks when effectively you're doing okay economically, and it's hard to tell on the 5-day how we're doing. Sorry, I had to update my memory there. And so the Russell 2000, if we're to say, is kind of a harbinger of the broader economy sentiment-wise, it's flat. Maybe headed pointing lower, meaning small business. So the Russell would have been nice to see going in the positive direction because it generally would suggest we're clearly going in one direction in the stock market, and that's the way I would read IWM as something that tells me generally that everything in the stock market is good. Now we're looking for, we did communications, the Russell, the next one was consumer discretionary. That's important, right? I will just say that the consumer discretionary means that if it's going well in the economy, people are spending more. On the day, it was flat, not good on the week, flat for the month, not positive. Okay, all right. And I don't need to look at the communications one. We've already seen that. Kathy Woods is not so good. Russell's not so good. I don't need to speculate how communications is doing. I'm going to skip to the more recognizable one that is, we've done consumer discretionary. We're now looking at utilities. Looking at the QQQ. That's generally IT stocks. We're looking at international hotel groups and possibly Micron. On the day, we were bullish on the Q. 5-day bullish, 1 month really bullish, 3 months good. All right, so let me look at my table of prospective stocks. Sorry, we said prospective stocks. DELL, I think passed. Sentiment because QQQ is positive, SMH was positive, international hotel groups. Based on my analysis, it's for rich people traveling. I will say it's 50-50. So the first one I'm looking at is DELL. I'm looking at DELL, and I want to know about DELL's option prices. So for beginning traders, I look up the symbol, I go to the options calendar, I look at it's trading closest to this thing here, 160. It's something I'm interested possibly in the long run. It's trading at 161. I expect the price to go up in an amount equivalent to the sum of the um, the bid and the ask. So this stock is looking like it, it could go up a lot according to technical analysis. The stock could go as high as 175 if I'm reading this correctly. Expected move is over $10. That's what I'm going to say. Maybe 20. So if that's the case, I really need to look at the strike price for where the ranges are. If it's telling me the stock could go as high as 180, what am I paying for it? $2, $275 is what they're asking. I'm sorry, bidding. That's what they'll pay. And if I really wanted to find, all right, so I'm gonna say it costs 275 right now to get in. Um, it's gonna get me 275 to get in for this week, and it's gonna cost me $340 to get in for the following week. 275 now plus 1 week. It's gonna cost me plus 1 week. It's gonna cost me this week. It's costing me 275 to get in at that strike price of interest 180. 180 is going to cost me, yeah, if I give it that much time, it's going to cost me 340. I could finance the 340 by selling the 275. That is going to cost me, it's going to cost me 65 to get into the 340. That's a good price. Again, I'm not going to go into explaining prices too much. That was called the spread type calendar. I'm going to look up at this straight up. I'm looking at the vertical in 2 weeks. It's going to cost me 410, which is this price here, minus 340. 410 minus 340 equals 410 minus 340. That one's going to cost me about 70. Net profit of what was it, $400? 400 if things go to plan. Risk reward is high. That one is peculiarly interesting to me. If you don't know how to price vertical spreads, I can't go into details on that one too much, other than briefly tell you that I want the stock to go as high as 180. I want it to go higher than 180. That is going to cost me 340 to buy that contract, but I want it to go to 180, but I'm going to buy the 175 call and sell the 180, meaning I know if I think it's going to go to 180, I buy the 180 for 340 and I sell the 175 for 410. That's $70. If I'm really thinking that the stock moves quickly this week, I'm looking at 275, 235 to 275. So then I'll say 235. And that's going to equal 275 minus 235. That's 40. Net on that is different because the spread isn't 500, it's 250. The length of that call with prospective 210 victory, 40, 70. I'm inclined to buy that using my analysis. $40 out of my pocket with the potential to make 100 on it should that stock decide to continue positively this week. Now, it's a very short-term window. I'm more interested possibly in looking at it in the future, but this video, what we did is we captured risk, sentiment, and price. I can get into DELL for as cheaply as $40, comfortably at $70, betting longer term that it has time to go up. You could buy both. We'll look at Micron as the last price check because that's all we have time for. You can do the rest of the analysis on your own. Nope. MU. Get the Micron, which is trading at 130 or so. The expected move here is a lot lower. So we're looking at the Micron price of 130. We expect the move to be closer to $5, a lot different, right, than the other stock we looked at, which had an expected move of so much, like $15. That's very rare. Suggests volatility is high, which is why we're looking at a calendar probably in the long run. Calendar tries to sell premium to buy longer term moves. 135 is the expected move. So Micron's price I'll say is 63 minus 83. 83 minus 63, which equals 83 minus 63, 20 asterisk net of $80 on that particular move should things go your way. We were also looking at calendar, so I'm thinking of buying the expected move of 135 for 163, we'll say 160, then we'll say 2 weeks. I'm looking at 163, 191 minus 63. Gotta do the math. 191 minus 163. Gotta do the math. Sometimes you'll find poorly priced options like that one. More inclined to do that one because I got more time to go. 28. $28. I wanted to do a calendar. Nope, not interested in calendar on this one. It's too cheap. I'm going to look at international. Well, it's a lot of thinking. A calendar, I go up a little bit in terms of price. Calendar, I roughly double the expected move. So I'm thinking the expected move. Our expected move is about $6. So I think the stock's going to get to 136 by that time. I'm going to say it's safe to say it won't get to 140. Safe to say it won't get to 140 June 7th, June 14th. I'm looking at June 14th. I want to buy D140. It's equal to 132. This is going to be I'm going to say, or 132. 132 minus the June 7th. June 7th, 140, 69, 63. 28, the net would be 100 minus 28, 72, unlimited for that. That was calendar 3 weeks, calendar 2 weeks. We want to look at the calendar for 140 is going to equal to 69 minus. This is how quick you got to be sometimes. This doesn't change. You got to do this every time, and you see how much time it takes. You have to save time, sometimes conceivably. 140, 16, 16, $53. All right. I'm not going to do international hotel